Hello everyone, this is another video I'm going to add to the Jody Vision playlist, talking about the part of my life where I've been experiencing visions. And in this video, this is one of the things where I'm trying to do something about it, something I'm trying to do to deal with this. So I got the idea to go to the reservation because I'd been learning a little bit about Native American history and how much going to visionary state plays into the decisions they make, especially when they're facing hard times, So sometimes, in life, we pretty much have our back to the wall and you have to do something. And sometimes you don't know what to do, so you just go for it, right? And that's where I was at. I just feel like it's like it's ruining my life, that I had gone to visionary state and me wanting to talk about it. It's pushing people away, making people angry at me, and it just ultimately make me feel really bad about myself. And I really want to find help because I know this is a real thing, and it's just hard to find someone to talk to really help me. I had been staying in touch with my friend Rosie Clearlight, and she was one of the people that told me, I should look into Native American prophecies. They have a lot of neat stuff, and I picked up a book, I think in 2005, and I had read it. It had a lot of different stories about Native American people. And so I started thinking, I should find a Lakota medicine man, because I had read about his crazy horse. And then I thought I should also find a Hopi person as well. And so throughout my life, I've had a small variety of, let's say, psychic or paranormal experiences that, for me, maybe that's my spiritual path, wanting to understand this stuff. And then I feel like that's kind of where I see the correlation with spirituality. It has to do with intuition and psychic awareness. That's really what constitutes a lot of what we call a spiritual text, or what we have in the Bible is really stuff where it's a spiritual issue or matter, so to speak. So it's always been there, and people have been going to visionary state a long time, and so that's why I thought the natives were really interesting, is because they actually take it seriously. Like, it's not just like how white people are when we talk about paranormal. I don't know, maybe for us it's entertaining to talk about it. It's like, oh, isn't that weird? Like, I saw a ghost, isn't that weird? Or I had deja vu, isn't that weird? And it's not so much that it's weird. It's actually part of nature, natural law. Anything that goes on is really because it's part of natural law. So whatever we're experiencing, if you're having any type of paranormal experience, is really part of nature. It just seems like an anomaly to us, because that's things where I was wondering, why do they consider Sasquatch part of paranormal, and it's kind of lumped in with UFOs and all this stuff? Well, it's because there are things that we see happen and we can never really put our finger on it. We can't explain it. It doesn't happen enough or frequently enough to be common either. So it just seems like it just happens a little bit, and then you can never trace it. Like, they can't find Sasquatch. They see him by accident, but then when you go looking for it on purpose, you can't find it. And similarly with UFOs, I almost think people see them by happenstance, but then when you really start trying to look for them, then you never find them, and then you're like, there's probably no such thing anyways, right? So anyways, that's kind of why I took an interest in the Indians, is because they seem to take all that stuff seriously. Otherwise, I really didn't know very much other stuff about the Native Americans, and I kind of found out a lot of stuff as I went along, that to me, it's really paranoid after a while once you start to find out that really what's happening is the Lakota Indians have been fighting with the U.S. government for a very long time, and things have kind of simmered down a lot, but there's still a bit of that left, a little bit of that unease, and so yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I've been really wanting to share this story for a while, but it's kind of complex, and I'm not very good at organizing my conversation, so I'm just going to try to look at what led me to the Indians. It's my paranormal stuff. Pretty much. And so I kind of want to point out that it also brought a lot of other benefits I wasn't expecting. I feel like it ties in with my cross-cultural education, and I feel like that kind of started with going to martial arts. So going to martial arts As you see, I have a classic pair of Shaolin weapons here in the corner from the classical weapons of Shaolin Kung Fu, the white waxwood spear and the rattan staff, along with a dragon cane, which is just a shorter rattan staff. So those are three of the classical weapons, and anytime you meet someone that's trained in Shaolin, you're liable to see those weapons in the corner by a door or in their room where they, you know, and I have quite a collection, so it just happens along the way. So I feel like I inadvertently ended up learning the historical martial arts, which could be a good thing, you know, like if World War III happens and we survive it. My dad's little joke is that if we live to see World War IV, it will be fought with sticks and stones. Thankfully, I've got ancient field battle training under my belt. Anyways, that really helped me to appreciate how you can gain a really good wealth of knowledge and insight from foreign people, you know. So today's age, maybe people right now see China as the enemy, you know, but because of my cultural cross training, I feel like no, China is a really great country with a rich history and a wealth of knowledge and insight. And I wouldn't know that if it wasn't for martial arts. And then I start to find out that there's some really interesting stuff going right here in our own backyard with the natives, that they also have a rich history and a wealth of insight and knowledge that that we have to fall back on in the case that we do blow ourselves back to the Stone Age. That's where people that know the old timesy things, like, you know, like I was talking about knowing historical martial arts, like, so some people are going to HEMA, that's the European. If you're going to Shaolin, that's the Asian counterpart, is learning historical battlefield training. And then so those of us who know how to cultivate food, how to get food, people that know how to live with animals like horses and mules and all this old timesy stuff, those are the people that are going to fare well if we survive World War III. And so will the Indians, you know, because they've always lived close to the earth. So now a lot of the Indians have gone on to live like white people, but there are still ones out there that are really trying to keep up the tradition of living close to the earth, you know. So some prophecies about earth changes. So the earth is going to change pretty drastically, and you can see already what's going on with Russia and all that stuff. I mean, they've been talking about World War III forever. We had 1, 2, and we're pretty much anyone's expecting 3 for logical reasons. But if you look at what the Indians are talking about, like the Hopi, you know, they've prophesied World War I and 2, and they're pretty much anticipating World War III. And then there's those Indians out in Nevada. They started the ghost dance tradition. They also had a similar idea of the earth is going to be changed and reformatted, and kind of like the Christians, you know, something big's going to happen, and we're going to be reunited with our ancestors and loved ones and all these type of thoughts. And that just makes you go, are they talking about like when we all die or what, you know? But then there's other ideas like solar flares and other events, dimensional shifts by going into like the galactic photon band and a lot of other things that could be transformative to our environment. So who knows exactly what we're getting, but I think like we're getting all this, you know, idea that we need to get ready for something really big that's going to change the earth, and some of it might be very unpleasant, and, you know, a lot of us might be leaving the planet at that time, you know, and so, you know, so I'm going to Vision Quest here, and I find out, you know, a lot of people that go to Vision Quest have actually seen similar things, you know, like seeing everything on fire everywhere, ashes coming from the sky, and all these type of scary ideas. But then after that, we live a good life, you know, and so a lot of people are seeing this coming up, and so it's in our psyche for some reason. I wonder why. So I read that book, Prophecies of the Native Americans, back in 2005, and that's when I made a decision. And so it's kind of cool because 4 is the magic number in like the Lakota people and other Indians. They like the number 4. That's the magic number for them. And so 4 years later, I had the chance to go to a vision quest. So I bumped into a buddy of mine that I used to work with, and he was coming down the street with a dream catcher in his hand. That he makes these dream catchers, and he'll take them with him when he goes out and about. And if he runs into certain people, then that's theirs. And the one he had that day was a black one with a little bit of red on it. I wish I had it available. It's probably right here in my stuff. I'll have to share that at some point, because I thought, that was just the right color for me. And that turned out to be my dream catcher, because I was the significant person he met that day. And I told him, you know what? I really want to go find a Lakota medicine man, because he started telling me a little bit about all the stuff he's doing with the Lakota people. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And so next thing I know, I went to a sweat lodge. I've been to a sweat lodge before. I had some buddies that do the Navajo style, so I went to their sweat lodge. I had a little practice. So this time I went to the Lakota sweat lodge. They hold those in Boulder, and I got introduced to Uncle David, or that's what my buddy calls him, Uncle David. And his name is David Swallow. So that's the medicine man I met. And first time I met him, and I told him I want to go to Vision Quest. And he says, why is that? He said, well, for lack of better terms, I guess, because it's like his crazy horse, It's like that. And he said, okay, get ready and go. And so he points to this lady named Stephanie and says, okay, I need you to get her ready. And so she got me ready. She's like she's not a Lakota. She's part Cherokee, part European, part white. And she was this bigger lady with short hair. And she let me know that the only reason she's helping me is because Uncle David asked her to. She'll do anything he says. Otherwise, I don't think she really liked helping me, but she was very helpful, and I appreciate it, because she did a lot for me. And she gave me some supplies, and I wasn't able to pay her back very well, because I was not working and I didn't have an income. So I was really worried, at the time, that I'm just not being taken care of, and I was kind of desperate to do something to come to terms with what's happening in my life, especially with the visions and stuff, because I felt like it wasn't doing me any good, and I need to find some way to resolve it, So before I went to Vision Quest, before we did Sweat Lodge, I think we actually made that trip to Arizona. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that trip. Went to Arizona because there was going to be a gathering of elders from around the world. Mostly there were like natives from America. There was a little bit of people from south of the border, and to my surprise, there were people like from Japan. I think they got people like this all over the world. It's just a phase of civilization where we have all been through an indigenous phase. So that's where, like, for example, some white people are into the pagan stuff and going into like the old Norse type of stuff. And it's kind of their way of going back to our roots, because it goes back to a more tribal time for us, And you'll find that the tribal traditions all across the world have a lot of similarities, Like I kind of think, for example, the medicine wheel, like the circle with the cross through it. That's it represents the 4 directions, but it also might it has like a type of value to it, because you see the circle of heaven and then the 4 directions in there. Seems like everybody uses similar concepts and stuff, but from group to group, there's just small differences in how they do their ceremonies and how they do their symbols and stuff. So it's kind of cool, So it's a really neat learning experience going down there and seeing all this. And while I was down there, I made friends with a Hopi lady named Janice, and she says she's not necessarily a medicine person, but she's akin to one. They call them a tobacco carrier, but she was a very psychically inclined lady, and so we went up to the Hopi reservation for a group to have a meeting up there, and that's where I was introduced to her. And she said she knew something was going on. Like, she had no idea about our meeting or anything, but she could see it on the horizon. She could see something going on in her psyche, and she knew it needed help, because there's somebody using black magic in the area. So she could see the black magic and the bad witchcraft that they were trying to ruin our gathering, that all the good energy that was coming together from those people. There, so it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like being in one of those stories, like here I am on this like sort of pilgrimage, and I have somebody telling me they knew we were in trouble because she could just see the black magic occurring. And then I met with her at her house, and I think I stayed the night a couple times, and we talked, and I told her a little bit about myself, so she knows I have a little bit of a Buddhist background. So I'm not really Buddhist, but I get training from the Vedic arts like kung fu and all this stuff. So comes with. And she said that she's always loved Buddhism too, so we had to sit down and do kind of like a Buddhist meditation or something together for healing. So she kind of did this for me, and she talked about being an interdimensional person, because I asked her a little bit, what's up with the I kind of want to know a little bit about the Pleiadian people. Maybe it was suggested to me that I might, they might be my relatives or something like that. I could be a starseed, and I kind of want a little insight. She's like, oh, a lot of people want to know that stuff, right? That's kind of common. There's a lot of people coming to the Indians to know about that stuff. And she let me know that the Pleiadians have been around the whole time. And so, like, what little I know is that we are actually part of the Pleiadian star system. So that's why. So, there could, we could be part of a local group of stars where there's other planets, and those people are advanced. So they know what's going on here, and some people can communicate, and she might be one of those. So it was kind of cool meeting her and talking to her. And so I'm going to stay in touch with Janice for a while in my story, and later on she gives me insight, because like after I moved to Montana, I'd get her on the phone, and I'm talking to her about why am I going to the visionary state, and she said, well, I'd certainly hate to have gone through whatever you went through, because that's a form of going out of your body to escape the situation you're in. So it could be, that's why, maybe there's something communicating with me, but part of what sets up the circumstances, maybe stressful experiences help enable me to be pushed to the other side where they communicate. Maybe that contributes to the likelihood, so to speak. Okay, so and also later on when I talked to my kung fu teacher Sin Kwang Te, he had a similar story where he goes to his master that he learns from and tells him his issue. And similarly, Master Te's been through a lot of traumatic things in his life, and that's what his master tells him. He's been through so much. That's probably what's putting him in visionary state, Okay, a little bit of insight from meeting her later on. And we stayed in touch for a while, and when I talked to her, she pretty much, I should say, assures that magic is real. Like, people do magic and they're still doing it, and it still takes effect. And one way or another, for those of you who meddle around with magic, the reason they warn us not to mess with magic is just for that reason, that there is such a thing and it's real, and you don't really want to mess with something you don't know what you're dabbling in and create a bad consequence. See? So kind of like in storybooks, talking to her and hearing about there are some people trying to use witchcraft on her and things like this. So really fun trip to Arizona. And while I was down there, I had a vision that I would be put in touch with an old friend of mine, but I didn't know it at the time. So this is also going to tie in later. Somebody said there's a woman named Amelia Bentley, and she's going to put me in touch with an old friend of mine, and that she's going to give me his phone number. And I thought he was talking about the girl that was playing guitar the night before. We had like a little circle, kind of a youth council meeting, and this woman sang and played the guitar, and I thought maybe he was talking about that woman. And it's so funny because later on I did meet the woman named Amelia Bentley, and I said, oh wow, you're the one at that youth council circle. I kind of mentioned it to her, and I told her that she's good at singing. She probably thought I was crazy because it wasn't her, but it's just how, just like a fine detail in me making a small mistake. But I do remember him clearly telling me this woman named Amelia Bentley is going to put me in touch with this old friend of mine. And so this is part of the issue I'm going to Vision Quest for, is I really want to deal with why in heck am I going into visionary state to be introduced to someone that doesn't seem to really want to talk to me, right? That's kind of driving me crazy and driving my friends crazy too. So that was brought up there, and while I was down there, pretty sure my friend Elias said, Jody, come here, I want you to see something. There was this lady saying some prayers over the fire. We were keeping fire. So you had to stay up all night, make sure the fire don't burn out. So he was the firekeeper, and I was sort of his assistant just because I came along. So we were playing firekeeper, and there was a lady that come over, and she said a prayer. And then she started talking in tongues, and he wanted me to notice that, what she's doing. She's talking in tongues. And so first she used proper language, and then she used whatever she's, channeling or something. Now when I was down there, we were allowed to take turns asking a question to the elders, and I got up and I took the microphone, and I said, it seems like there are things that are going to happen to us in the near future that seem to be out of our control. Like we're going into a really bad thing. And I'm just thinking, we need to really just find a way to get that wisdom. How are we going to get that insight to cope with all these things that are coming right at us? And so I don't know if that's exactly how I worded it, but that was kind of my issue. Is what are we going to do to prepare ourselves, to have that clarity and all that good stuff we're going to need to. We're everything's going kind of cool, and if everything changes and it's real drastic, what are we going to do? I'm not sure if this was an exact answer, but it was a good answer. And he said, that sacred fire you've been keeping, he said, well, that's like the fire in your heart. He said, there will always be something to put that fire out, and it's your job to keep that fire burning. And I thought, well, that's really good, It's your job to keep that fire burning. So that keeping fire is very symbolic of keeping a strong spirit, because we consider like the heart, like our spirit center, and we associate that with fire. You feel warmth, and there's a flame and this type of thing. And yeah, exactly, makes sense. Is that is the secret to success, actually. So I call it spiritual survival. So that's where, it's kind of like you want to keep enough flame. You don't want it to be down, like, you don't want to be like the Grinch, this little tiny, you need to be full hearted, and you really need to keep the flame burning. And that's what gives you the power and the strength to overcome all these things in particular. Anyway, so that was important. That was a cool little piece of advice. And I don't know if I have time to describe every single detail, but I just really wanted to hit some points there. And before we left, though, it seemed like they were spraying the sky really thick with chemtrails and talking about swine flu. And I don't know if something got in my system, but I didn't get really sick, but I got really fatigued after going down there. And I did jump in there was a stream nearby because it was so hot out. I went skinny dipping, and then later somebody told me you shouldn't go in that water for some reason, and I was hoping I didn't get something in there. Because, man, it seemed like when I came back from Arizona, I was so tired. I was like, I went to work out at Kung Fu, and I was so tired from it. It took days to recover. And I think after on my way back to Denver, we were driving through the southwest corner of Colorado, and it's like woods and mountains. I did another video about how I was introduced to Ted in Big Fork, and it was that trip home. I did a like what you call a time slip or a visionary slip, kind of both, because it was like I was a year in the future going past Ted's house, seeing his Jeep parked out in front of his little cabin, and my friend was telling me, you have an old friend that lives there, and then he said, we're, about 5 minutes south of Big Fork, and all this stuff, and then in reality, it came true. I met a guy named Ted in Big Fork that lived in that place. That was his truck. But it kind of got me confused with Bill Lee, because he's also being referred to as an old friend of mine. And when I first saw Ted, I almost thought he looked like Bill Lee wearing a wig. That's kind of what made me want to get a closer look to him. But anyway, so that happened on the way home. I had that little visionary slip. So apparently I've been having these visionary slips without knowing it. Like, okay, so in Arizona, someone's telling me I'm going to be put in touch with Amelia. On the way to Denver, I'm seeing south of Big Fork, driving through Woods Bay, going past that guy's house. And then the next thing I had a short visionary slip was my friend Janet that I live with now. She's also a little bit clairvoyant, but she was telling me there's this woman named Amelia Bentley who's going to put me in touch with Bill Lieb, and how she's pretending to be his girlfriend, but she's not. And she's a party planner, a dog groomer, and this and that. And so later on, when I met Amelia, she did talk about wanting to do all these different type of things, all these different types of businesses and stuff like that. So pretending to be Bill's girlfriend, but not. And then she would give me his number. So this girl was supposed to, Amelia Bentley was going to give me this guy's number later on. And she didn't give it to me directly, but she did provide it for me, so to test me to see if I would take it. So that did come true later. And so I'm just bringing that up because this is where I had another little visionary slip that contained information about this woman, Amelia Bentley, who I'd come in contact with after I moved to Big Fork a little bit later. And then I had a phone call with my dad. I was telling him I'm about to go to Vision Quest up in South Dakota, and he told me that he was at the swimming pool where he works, and so it could have been there or now, like he lives someplace where he uses a swimming pool. It could be either or, because I think it was a visionary slip, and I mixed the information up, because in reality I think he did meet somebody from Austria while he was swimming at the pool at work, and so somehow it like crossed up with the possibility of it being Bill, maybe, because my dad said this Austrian man came to him while he was in a swimming pool and asked for his daughter's heart, and I thought that sounds kind of weird, and then he kind of went on and on about other stuff. And later on, I kind of put together that he really did meet somebody from Austria and gave him a little bit of pot to smoke, and seemed like a really cool, intelligent man. But it sounded like it was clearly a different story, but I remembered that, and that's another clue that there's a reference with Bill Leap. So it seems like when I talk about the visions in the earlier stories, that's what I've had a ton of these little hints and clues that this guy might be interested in me, or he might show up and do these things and all this, and then in reality he really doesn't seem to give a rat's ass, doesn't seem to care for me at all. So that's why I'm going to Vision Quest. So let me see. Another story I did was what we call God, what we call Jesus. So before I went to South Dakota, I had to get rid of these mushrooms, because my friend was acting really jealous and wanting to do something to me out of spite, and so I wanted to get rid of these so she doesn't, get me in trouble for having them. So, in a ways, and it was a really weird trip. Like, I usually just dance to the music and just play with energy. Like, I don't hallucinate when I trip as like other people do. In fact, all these visions and stuff, they really have nothing to do with psychedelics. I mean, and there are other people I know who have visions that never use psychedelics, that are really clean cut and, drug-free, professional, successful, financially, successful. So, it's not just a crazy people thing. But this trip was very interesting because I felt like I was being contacted by what we call God, what we call Jesus, and just gave some good insight on what we call spirit law and all that stuff. And since then, I feel like I've been talking in tongues a lot more too. So I felt like it helped me to see what I was like in a past life. I think I was a man in a past life, and I was seeing that. And the funny thing is after this all happened, my friend was having a fit because her cat was bugging her. She was trying to sleep and the cat was waking her up. So she came and she threw it out the door. And I almost thought she hurt the cat because when I walked up to it, it was looking the other way like this. Like it couldn't look right at me. And I thought it hurt its neck. But I think after I got contacted by God and Jesus, it could have been my aura. The cat couldn't look right at me. It kept looking away. So really weird stuff. So all this funny little stuff is going on. And, when I went to Vision Quest, I'm just going to tell you, like, I didn't really have a crazy wild vision. In fact, when I was up there, before I went up on the hill and in any ceremony, I was just hanging out with my friend Elias, and he said something like, this is the formality of a Vision Quest. This is so that way we can kind of maybe have control over the event. And the reason for that, I think, is because maybe Vision Quest was discovered by accident. When somebody gets stuck out in nature and they come close to death, maybe it's really just near-death experience. Because that's all it really is. It's like you go up on a hill for like up to 4 days with no food and water, so you're just stressing your body. So what I'm learning is, people are gaining access to spirit world by, when the body starts to shut down, then you supersede your physical limitations of perception, So that's what I've been learning. This is pretty much all Vision Quest is, is going without food and water for 4 days at a time. When you're new, you go 1 day, and I didn't know this. I told them, well, just put me up there for 3 days. I just thought 3 is a good number. Let's go 3. I should have just went 1, and so I was set to go up for 3 days, and I only went the 1 because before I went up there, I also had a scary flash that I would be on this hill and someone would come with a rifle, and then I got like, maybe I shouldn't go. I started getting scared, like I was going to turn back, but the lady that was told to help me get ready said, you can't turn back. You made a commitment, you're going. So I went over to her house and stayed a couple of days, and I made all these little prayer ties, and I learned all this stuff. And one of the books she had me read was written by a Christian priest that got involved with the Indians. Now, I think this is a cool guy because he really tried to document all the what their ceremonies require, and so this way it would give me an understanding of what I'm preparing for and stuff like that. And so that's where being able to learn from others is part of my lesson here. It's like, I've been able to learn from the Asians. I'm about to go and learn from the Indians. So I want to talk about let me see. I really spent a long time talking about what leads up to me going to the ceremony. Like, it's already been a half an hour. Like, going to Arizona, having a few more visionary slips that I wasn't aware of. So I got put in touch with a couple of Indians that are living in the Denver area that had a good reason to ride up there. They weren't going for the ceremony, but they just wanted to go up and see their relatives. And so I got a ride from them. And the whole way up there, they were just like, okay, we got to be, hush hush, and we don't want to run into any trouble. So they're a little bit worried about seeing headlights behind us because we're traveling at night, and so we're trying to get up there without running into any trouble. Now before that, after I went to Arizona with my friend and we're driving back to Colorado, he was also warning me, when you get involved with the Lakotas, then the feds might run an investigation on you if they see you hanging out with these people. So he kind of planted some seeds of paranoia for me there, and so I'm just bringing this up because I almost forgot. That's super important. I forgot how finding out that the Lakota don't have a really great relationship with our government. So the seeds have been planted that, okay, now you could be under surveillance or under investigation for doing this. And I just accepted that, and I didn't worry about it too much, really. And so we got up there, and I brought a tent, and I just had like this big Tupperware thing with a bunch of snacks. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do for food, but they told me there's somebody that always sets up a kitchen and feeds us. So I kind of counted on those people a lot to feed me, and I didn't really have, I think they wanted donations, but I really didn't have the money, and I mentioned to those people, there was a couple of white women that come up there every year, and they're like, they raise money for charity, like they're like the kind of white people that want to support the Indians, and so this lady knows how to make money. She's got a nice truck and a nice trailer and brings all this stuff up. I think her name was Carmen or Carmine or something like that. And later on, my friend was telling me that she could have been a government operative for all we know, pretending to be friends of the Indians, because those women were really giving me grief and making me feel like I didn't belong there, So that's an example of how they're always running into these type of issues. In fact, the young kids were really worried about me because they were hoping I wasn't some type of a spy, because they went through my stuff and maybe somebody stole my sunglasses, and I made a big deal and got them back because I need my sunglasses. But Uncle David, the Indian guy, I think the reason he brought me up there because he has intuition, He knows I belong there. He knew I needed it, and that's why I posted a couple videos of his. You can see who he is, and he did another video. He was talking about he doesn't care what your tradition is. If you want to come to their ceremony for healing, you can come, do your thing, and leave. You don't have to conform. If you benefit from it, then benefit from it. So he's not really strict. So he kind of knew that I'm a spiritual person. He let me know that a lot of the people you're gonna meet here are not spiritual people like you are. And so that's probably what he's talking about. Once these women came up and they were kind of being bitches to me, because I told them, I don't really have a job right now. I mean, all this kind of stuff. And like, that's why I'm up there, I'm kind of desperate. And that's kind of what the story of his Crazy Horse is about, is they were, in desperate times back to the wall. And he did a really improper vision quest, but he went up on a hill and he did receive a ton of psychic information. He's somebody that was able to see the future and see inventions like aircraft and motor vehicles and highways before those were created and put down there. And he was able to see, the future with everything burning. He was able to see all that ugly housing they put on the reservations filled with all the bad things happening right now. That's where the government housing's always got alcoholism and gang activity. He was seeing that a long time ago before it even occurred. So I really love the story, and I think that's, they actually the only, I don't know if they're the only or the first, but they were like the only Indians to win a battle with white guys, with the U.S. government, or one of our armies, so that's why I thought it was a great story. Of course, they lost in the long run, but in the moral of the story is that he was able to get insight from his visions and use that information and it helped them win, you know. That's why I wanted to do a vision quest, because I just really want to know what to do with my circumstances. Now, it didn't last the whole 3 days. I mean, and then I found out I could have just went for one, and I should have just went for one, because that's really all I could handle. And when I came down, though, I was feeling like, man, everyone's gonna be hard on me for quitting early, you know. But the medicine man, he didn't give me any grief. He said that he knows I'm running for something, and he said when I go home, I'm gonna receive my blessing and all this good stuff. So, and I think when I went home to receive blessing, that's when Rosie invited me to Montana. So I can't really, you know, talk too much. They don't really like us to tell too much about things that we do, you know, but it's just I kind of want to touch on a few points that to me kind of help me to understand that that for lack of better terms, I think they have real magic, and it's good magic. They're not satanic or anything like that. They do have a lot of spirit activity there. So when I went on the hill, I could tell. I felt like there was a lot of people there. I could hear them talking, and you know, when I went to sleep, I was having really vivid dreams, and I think one of the things I just needed to hear at the time was that. So Jody, you're being taken care of, okay? That was like pretty much what I got told. So Jody, you're being taken care of, because right at the moment, that's been my struggle is, so I got permission to stay in this house, but most of the stuff I brought home, I haven't unboxed it because I'm not sure if I'm going to have the money to stay here. I'm waiting for things to come through. Maybe I can get some other income. But I could have been unpacked by now, but I've been hesitant. It's been really hard for me to find a way to take care of myself without having a mommy and daddy. You know, I'm 49, going on 50 in 2025, and I just haven't found my niche or whatever it takes to make money. But somehow, you know, things have come together. Now, when I come up to stay with Rosie, she took care of me. I didn't have to pay for rent, and I had my basic needs met in exchange for being like her personal caregiver, and you know, like her personal assistant, more or less. So that's what that was about. So yeah, you know, that came true. I was being taken care of by Rosie, but now that she died, I kind of panicked, and everything worked out. Crazy thing, everything worked out. So there's some really important keys that I learned up in the reservation was how important singing and dancing is. That in order to be a medicine man, you have to know songs. And the songs they know are really ancient songs, and the reason they continue. So you want to preserve a ceremony in such a way that it communicates to your ancestors, so you don't want to change things drastically, but they can change a little at a time. Because different medicine men have dreams and visions that contribute to how they run their ceremony. So they all have the same basic format, but each medicine man might have a different little thing they do. Now, that kind of helped me realize, okay, the keeping a tradition helps us communicate with our ancestors, and I realized that's kind of what Shaolin does for us. The people who practice traditional Shaolin, by the way, when you learn those forms, those long forms, you're not just, those are like a great way to remember your vocabulary, give you some good exercise, but those are also like a little ceremony, and it communicates to our ancestors. And there's been a time when I needed my kung fu. I was in a fight with somebody when I was a taxi driver, and just something came over me to where I was able to fight unlike how I normally fight. And my Tai Chi worked, and I attribute that to guidance of the ancestors. So I felt like, you know, Shaolin is magic too. You may not realize that. That's what I kind of realized by hanging out with the Indians. It's like not only that, but then the music you listen to. I think for the most part, like the music we listen to isn't very formal, a very formal ceremony, but it's a ceremony nonetheless. So if you're having just a concert, you know, just a bunch of people come to your concert, that's actually a kind of ceremony. Because I was just thinking, you know, why do we make singers so important anyways? You know, there's somebody that can make music and sing. What's so important about being a singer? Well, in Lakota and all these Native American traditions, being a medicine man, you are actually, they call them a singer. So singers are very important because you're getting in front of a bunch of people and joining all their energy with just your one voice, you know. And so that's why it's important. So that's why it's a damn shame so many people waste the opportunity by making garbage music, right? And you get all these people listening just so you what, give them trash. So, so I kind of think we give people in the music business too much power, and we treat them like royalty and all this stuff. But not, maybe there's an underlying reason for that. No, that's not how I want it to be, because the problem is it produces narcissism. In fact, in the Amish tradition, they don't allow people to become rock stars and famous artists because of narcissism. They're only allowed to sing Christian hymns together. I'm thinking, that's actually very oppressive. I would rather just have, freedom of expression minus the narcissism, by the way. So yeah, if you are a singer and you're broadcasting, you are important because you might have a lot of people paying attention to your voice, and how it affects everyone's mentality if you're an influence. And also, yes, that's what makes you important, because you have a position of responsibility according to what you're dispensing to others. But being a singer is very important. Music's very important. Anything you do, attracts the spirit world in some way, but music in particular does. And something my friend mentioned to me before we went up to the res is that he thought I looked like a ghost dancer. I was just dancing to my techno music, and says I look like a ghost dancer. And I found out what that is more recently. That by the way, these are more Indians who prophesy some big change is coming. And the way you're going to deal with that is you're going to practice this ghost dance ritual on a regular basis. And now the Lakota have picked this up, and this is kind of one of the things they got in a fight about. Was when they picked up the ghost dance. It's as if it was something against white people, so the government came after them and wanted to bring everyone under arrest and go through all their stuff. And somebody shot off a gun, and then they weren't really trying to fight or anything, but for some reason a shot was fired, and so the soldiers there just opened fired, and they massacred everybody there. It was just a knee-jerk reaction, supposedly, according to that story. But it's just a really sad thing that a lot of people died over this, what you call ghost dance, because ghost dancing is a very powerful tradition or practice. And it made me think about that's another important lesson I'm getting from the Indians, is how whatever this is. So the prophecy sounds a little bit like the Christian prophecy that like the coming of Jesus. Maybe the ancestors and our loved ones will be raised from the dead. So that sounds more like you're joining your relatives. I don't know if that means we're all dying together, but at the same time, there are ideas like, okay, all this bad stuff will happen, but then it's going to force those of us who survive to work together better from now on, and that's going to be that era of peace when we realize we're tired of this way of life. Maybe everyone will start to join together in that mentality. That could be so we're supposed to go through this rough part, and then that's when we're going to see that era of peace. So this seems to be a common belief around the world, even in Buddhism. I found a group called the Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. Nichiren Shoshu and Nichiren Daishonin was supposed to be the reincarnation of Buddha, and he created this practice for the latter day of the law, and that's a term we hear in Christianity. So even they speak of the latter day of the law, that we're coming to the end of this era or cycle, and some things we need to do to prepare for it. So this was something I was contemplating about earlier. I did a live on my Facebook to share. I was trying to put together how this all ties in, because there's the idea that the extraterrestrials are working with us. They might contribute to this, maybe help contribute to this practice. But some of these people that are having visions, they feel like it's coming from what we call God or from the spirit world to tell us, to keep working on that dance. And then when the time comes, this transitional state, you should be dancing, and that's going to protect us. And so maybe that's where the misunderstanding happened at Wounded Knee, is white people thought Indians believed they were bulletproof because of their ghost shirt, and it's not necessarily what we're talking about. It should it should protect your soul during this major transition, this major earth change we're expecting, is what we're talking about. So it was a really cool learning experience, and it seemed like the people that were for me were the medicine man and his family. They knew I was a good person. But the people that were hurt on me were the other white people, and they all abandoned me, and I had no way to get home. And so I had to get the medicine man's kids to take me down. So they're adults with kids, you know. So this nice couple, Vanessa and Alfred Swallow, we stayed friends ever since, you know. So we took that truck ride down to get me to a shuttle, and we've been staying in contact ever since. We're not close friends, but it's very fortunate that we've met, and we're all in touch, and we're staying in touch because I really feel like that's kind of part of my karma, you know. Maybe like being brought to this valley and all this stuff. I've thought about leaving here to go back to Denver and stuff, and I really miss all the stuff I used to do. But then, you know, as we're coming up on what could possibly be World War III, I don't know if I'm in a better place, you know, if I'm supposed to survive it. And that's just all speculating. But very interesting how this trip came together, because I wished for it back in 2005. 4 years later, my wish came true. Sometimes you can make a wish and make that wish come true, right? So I got my wish. I got to go see the medicine man, and he told me that when I go to Denver, I'll receive my blessing. And so I got back to Denver, and my friend that I was living with, Janet, she was being super jealous, especially because, you know, my friend Elias, she wanted that to be her boyfriend, and he wasn't happy. It just wasn't the relationship he wanted, so he wanted to break up, and she somehow held it against me and threw me out for that reason, and I had to put all my stuff in storage. And I was staying with my friend John for a little bit because I was going to see if I could just find another job and get back on my feet. But then I got Rosie Clearlight on the phone, and she said, you know, her husband died the year before, and now she's alone, and she could really use my help. She made a sale online. It's funny, she made $9,000, and I'm going to say that number because I like numerology, and so 9 is also a number of higher magic. You know, when Alfred and Vanessa dropped me off at my hotel, I received room number 119, and I thought, you know, that's like the gateway to higher spirituality. And I come home, and then she just earned a bunch of money, and so she was able to get my bus ticket. I went to Montana. I brought my bare necessities. Then I made a trip back, and I was going to get everything out of storage, but I was kind of scared because I didn't have enough money to get a U-Haul and drive it home. So I did make a second trip back to Montana to get some more things, and then I did eventually go down with Rosie to clean out my storage after I decided to settle. But it was right after I got back, getting thrown out, and then having Rosie invite me up. So I would say that's like June, you know, June of 2009, and that's why I think it's interesting. It's just I really thought this medicine man had good intuition, because I felt like he was testing me a little bit. Like he could tell I was a little bit worried about somebody with a gun. I was in the sleeping in the other trailer with the guys were staying up on the reservation, and I felt like the young guys didn't like me there, and I was laying down asleep, and it seemed like I was in reality, like hearing footsteps and looking up to see a really big gun at my face. Then I woke up and it was all gone, and then I got up to use the bathroom. And when I went by Uncle David's window, I think he felt my presence, because I went back to the toilet and I heard him say, "Who's back there?" And I said, "Oh, it's just me." He's like, "Oh, okay." Well, the very next day, I was hanging out with the guys around the kitchen table, and he said, "You know, you should go sit over there. You know, in the Indian tradition, a single woman shouldn't hang around a bunch of guys. You know, I should only hang around the women." So he has me go sit over on the couch, and I'm sitting over on the couch feeling kind of awkward. And then he goes in his room, and he comes out, and he has this shotgun, and he starts talking about the shotgun, and he's going to take these guys and train them. And I knew inside he was testing me. He wanted to see how comfortable I felt around that gun, you know. So that's how I know Uncle David could probably feel me running by, because I was thinking about that gun in my face. And I'm not afraid of him. But I think I was afraid of, I didn't want I don't know, I was honestly afraid I might get assassinated by our own government for going to the Indians. I mean, that was my honest fear, so maybe he could feel that I was afraid to get shot up there, and that's why he stood there in front of me with that gun, to see what I would do and read my face, you know, see if I'm not afraid of it. I felt like he really respected me, you know, and he let me know that I'm a spiritual person before I left, in the true sense. So that was an important confirmation. I didn't find a whole lot of resolve. Now, when I was up there, I also remember being told that Okay, so the ceremony, I mean, this was the formality, but sometimes it can happen in a really inconvenient way. Like you could be at work or at home. And the very next year, I think I may have had uh, this very thing. He said, now you're not going to receive a pipe like everybody else. Your second time, you're going to receive something that looks more like a bat, you know, or a club. I think he was talking about this because the very next year when I was staying with Rosie, I received this. And I talked a little bit about how when Roger Brockman took me to Rosie's in visionary state, and he also showed me the same weapon. And then when I finally encountered it, and she explained it to me, I realized this is what I prophesied. So when I was on the reservation, I had a visionary slip talking to my friend actually, and he let me know I was going to receive this instead. So I've been trying to treat this as a spiritual object in hopes that I never use it in a real fight, you know. So later on, I think I was having a meeting where I brought this along, and somebody asked me, why did I bring this? Well, instead of receiving the chanupa, I received this I don't know if it's a traditional weapon, but it was my magical weapon that Howard Clearlight created, and has a symbolic knot. So I just thought I'd throw that in there because that's where I was explained, you know, Vision Quest is something that the ceremony is kind of meant to bring that possibility under control. So maybe that way, if you only have that experience at the ceremony, you won't have to have it in such an inconvenient way, such as sort of maybe you could be somebody who ends up getting stuck out in nature, or somebody having a near-death experience. Maybe that way that don't need to happen if you can control it. So that's just my theory. Anyways, I just wanted to share a little bit about what that somewhat of that timeline, you know, like me leading up to going there, because for me, you know, like I'm not just looking for religion. You know, people think I'm trying to find my religion, and I'm not. I just wanted somebody to help me figure out what's going on with the visionary stuff, and if anything, it didn't give me the exact resolve I was looking for, but it really helped educate me so much on how important stuff is, like the way music is part of ceremony and a lot of different things, and really helped me to understand what I call basic magic, you know, what's fundamental to you know, metaphysical stuff, and hopefully have a long-lasting friendship with the Lakota people I met there. So since I've come up to Montana, I met somebody, she calls herself a hoot connector, and I thought that's what I am in my own way. Is, you know, I don't really belong to any one religion, but I'm happy to make friends with people that are spiritual. So to me, I feel like this is a prayer circle that I've connected with in the same way I have a connection with other different prayer circles, you know. So instead of religion, I like the idea of prayer circles. These are people that, you know, if you're like-minded to each other, and you get along, you work together, and what you do is you create a morphogenic field of intention. So witches know this. That's why they have what you call the covenant, you know. Have 12 people pray together. Even Christians know this. Like if you bring 2 or more people together to pray in the name of Jesus, it's going to make it more audible to the spirit world. So being able to join together with people who are like-minded, we support each other in prayer. No matter what we believe, you know, that's another one of my major precepts, that everybody wants the same truth, you know. Everyone wants the same, I call it growing a synapses, you know, a creator. So you want to develop a type of psychic awareness or intuition that communicates with the spirit world, in a sense that we can receive truthful information. Like, so for those of us who believe in God, you know, it doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It's just like a component in the universe that corresponds to you, that you're a conscious presence, and the universe is a living system that also has a conscious presence. So we may tie into that basic universal conscious presence, but also being able to just communicate with the people around us in a common sense. You know, it's all about being able to communicate. So that's what spirit gives us, is the ability to communicate. And that's where I felt like going to the Indians, they show me another way. So it's another way of learning and communication. So we can learn through intuition. Now, when you got to understand about intuition, it's like this. I'm going to use this as an example. Intuition is feeling. Let's say you can't see this, but you can feel this, and you know, it's warm, it's fuzzy. Let's see, it's got hooves, you know. But to have scientific knowledge is when I can open my eyes and like, yep, it's definitely a Bambi. It's definitely Bambi. So that's why before we come into a scientific age, there has been an intuition age, or a spiritual age. And so when we look at old knowledge, like when we're looking at what the indigenous people teaching us, prophecy, or the Bible even has a lot of prophecies and teachings in it too, and it's mixed together with a lot of information that was put in there by mankind, so people know that religion is being used as a tool of control. You can still look at the Bible and see past that screen, and there's still stuff left in there that you need that makes sense. So no matter where you're looking, truth is truth, but it's combined with other information, and that's why you need intuition. So you use intuition in an open-minded, flexible way, just like that fuzzy thing in my hand. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll find out later. But I'm pretty sure it's an animal. And then you're going to find out what kind of animal later. So that's kind of what's going on, like with what we call God and Jesus. It's more like it's something we sense or feel like there's some truth in it. But later on, we're going to have a clear scientific understanding of what that really is, So to me, this is just a really important leg in my spiritual education. And again, a good opportunity to make new friends that hopefully we'll know in the long run. And if we do go through these weird times and stuff, that's where I kind of like to have friends like this, people that know how to live close to the earth. If you live, I hope we see you on the other side. If not, then I'll see you in hell. Just kidding. So I was getting a ride home from the shuttle driver that was very religious, and he was telling me he thinks I'm up there looking for my religion. And I should stop wasting my time and just go to a Judeo-Christian church like the one he goes to. Like, that's all you need. So when I talk to Christian people, they're like, I've been here, I've been there. All you need is Jesus, So I've been contacted by God and Jesus already. And so that to me just tells me, yes, we're all subject to the same truth, the same spiritual truth. If we have this, living universe, we know we're in a duality, that's apparent, but the Holy Trinity is also apparent, if you can see what I'm saying, and it's all there within you. It's just a matter how we define it, so this is a Christian term. That's why when they came to me, they said what we call God, what we call Jesus. These are earth words, these are Christian words. We're all subject to the same spiritual reality just as much as the same physical reality, whether we know it or not. It doesn't matter if there's oxygen in the air. It doesn't matter if there's a universal conscious presence or not. You still benefit from them whether you know them or not. Anyways, I just wanted to share this leg of my story along with some of the insight, and I really think that, again, that truth is universal, and they might have a lot of these cool stories, and they're all slightly different, and they're kind of nonsensical, but you should be able to see the truth through them, because this is how you get intuitive knowledge. And then I've always had an interest in music. I think a lot of music I listen to, like when we look back at electronic music, like particularly underground, industrial music, trance music, I think people that write music like that are using intuition when they write music. And when you dance to music like that, it also has a similar effect. I feel like listening to the right music and dancing to the right music, it helps you to connect with the spirit world, and you can also benefit from that type of intuition and empowerment it gives you, so it's a lot. Music really is important, and I'm really glad for this experience to help me to understand that. And so next leg of my story I'll share. After I moved to Montana, I had some really interesting events where, instead of going to visionary slips and seeing like a parallel dimensional timeline or seeing the future, it was more like I was reliving times that I came from. There's at least 4 different times or so that I time traveled to the future and saw my life there in Big Fork in 2010. And so man, I didn't make a list, and I didn't check it twice, so I really hope I hit a lot of the points I needed to tell you about my trip to see the Lakota people, and that I think it didn't help me find immediate resolve, but it definitely gave me a valuable education, and I'm very thankful for the people who helped me to get there and make all those connections, and I'm thankful for all the people who've stayed in touch with me since then. Okay, you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.